Today, Mandy and I are going to break some myths. I don't know if you ever watched the show, Mandy, but Mythbusters is coming to mind. We've got many, many myths in the nutrition space, the training space, the overall health space, because it's so filled with opinion. Not all of it is backed up with a lot of facts, right? I feel this way, therefore it becomes fact, is kind of as far as a lot of this stuff goes. So we're going to look at some of the key ones that I want to really break down. I'm not going to go into the real basic ones like, weight training makes you bulky, because if you're listening to this podcast, you kind of already know that's not true. It's really effective training, and there's all these aspects of there's a kind of caliber of filtering that we're going to do on this. We know you guys are smart, but this stuff still trips up a lot of people that are smart. So I think it's worth going into around some of the concerns and nuances that come up a ton. And the first one we're going to dive into, being more of a nutritional one, is eggs are bad.
Yeah. And this, to be fair, this is kind of a simple one, but it does still come up a whole lot, which I think is really interesting. And I feel like that then warrants a discussion if it's going to come up a lot. So the whole eggs are bad thing comes from the cholesterol idea, the concept that cholesterol is bad for us, and that eggs are a good source of cholesterol. But if we actually dig into this, really and truly, the short answer is there is no problems with eggs. You could truly eat as many eggs in a day as you wanted to, and you wouldn't have a problem. The only issue would be is you'll probably be getting quite a lot of calories, right? Because have you actually trapped enough protein just from eggs alone? And you see the caloric value goes really, really high because there is quite a lot of fat in there. But as far as cholesterol is concerned, eggs absolutely not a problem. It doesn't matter if you eat two a day. It doesn't matter if you eat eight a day. It's not going to have a significant impact on your cholesterol, because what people don't understand is that when you eat less cholesterol, like when you eat foods that are lower in cholesterol, your liver simply makes more of it. So reducing your dietary intake truly makes no difference on the amount that your liver is producing at any given time. And so it is basically a null point.
Debunked.
I
Look,
probably need to give a bit more science to fully debunk that, but let's just say, don't worry about that
yeah,
one.
yeah. All I was going to add is, obviously, if you have eggs every single day, we have seen a lot of clients that can get resistant or sensitive to eggs, and they
Hmm.
probably need to have a break from eggs. But that's more of a digestive thing, not a cholesterol thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Just being able to simply disconnect that myth that the cholesterol you consume in food increases cholesterol in the body is the one that we're trying to remove, because essentially that is not how it comes up, and there's many other factors that can make that a lot worse. So eggs are great. Just if you've smashed them twice a day every day, you're probably going to have some digestive issues initially or eventually. So it's still something to address, but certainly not that from that cholesterol side. The second one is a little bit more. I'm going to go the supplement way first. There's two of them on kind of both ends of the spectrum here I want to address. The first one is just take a supplement, you can fix it. And then the other side of that is supplements are just expensive pee. And again, like everything we talk about, the extremes are probably less helpful than somewhere in the middle of the two. So let's explore both of them. Mandy, on your side of the just take a supplement to fix it, why does that roll you up?
Mhm. Yeah, I got a message in the weekend from my cousin who's somewhat educated in this area, and she's like, I'm having some digestive issues. Should I try taking this supplement? She's like, or is it more complex than that? And I was like, I love that little tagline that she put on the end, because yes, it's way more complex than that. But I think it's super interesting because there are both ends of the spectrum, right? And the first supplements are marketed so well. This is the issue. If you go into any pharmacy, you go into any health store, you get this barrage of marketing information on why this is the perfect supplement to help you. And if you don't choose that one, the next one beside it will tell you why it's the perfect supplement to fix whatever you need. And what it always misses is, what are you experiencing as an individual? What are you doing? All of these different things. There's no way that it can actually tell you what you need, because the supplement doesn't know you, the supplement company doesn't know you. And so the whole idea that there is a supplement that can fix whatever's going on for you is completely flawed, because how does the supplement company know? How does that specific supplement address that specific issue for everyone when everyone's issues are so varied and different, and their lifestyle and their inputs are also different? So I think there's two ends of the spectrum, right, where we give supplements too much credit for their ability to fix something, when actually they can be a really nice cherry on the cake to support a process which is done from so many other aspects, whether it's food, movement, all those sorts of things. But there's no way that one supplement can solve all of your issues, because your the things we deal with, or the struggles that we have, come from a multitude of different factors, not just one.
Yeah, and even if it is the right supplement for the concern, i.e., look, I have digestive upset, so I need to take a probiotic, or I need to take a digestive enzyme. They
Yeah.
might be the right supplement, but like if you're still smashing bread 3 times a day or having your pie, it's not going to cancel that out. Like fix the pie problem, not the
Yeah.
pill lacking problem, right? And I think
Yeah.
that sometimes where the potency of those supplements can be correct, but sometimes the application is like you're trying to add something to a problem that needs to be removal first. But coming back to your point of packaging, right? The Australia, what was it, Nurofen got in trouble last year around basically having the same Nurofen, but putting them in different packages. One was for period of pain, and one was for this, that, and the other. And they quite literally were the exact same supplement when you looked at ingredients. It was just clever packaging. Um,
Right.
so, that side of development, and, you can always trace a money trail back to where they're going to spend a lot more resources. And you could, it makes sense in a lot of ways. Like nobody's going to know about a great supplement until it's marketed well. The trouble
Mm.
is regardless of whether it's good, there's companies that still do well at the marketing piece first. So, if you understand it, you don't get as grumpy behind it, but it just means that you kind of like we talked about yesterday. If you're confused, you just need to add more context so that you really have that information to know what you should use first. And I think
Mm.
the
Mm.
just take a supplement is quite naive because there's usually so many other steps that you can actually manage. And obviously, from a skill set standpoint in a coaching environment, that's where we spend so much more of our time. But to what you alluded to before was also the other side of the space, which is supplements are just expensive pee, right? So this
Mm.
is another realm, and we certainly have worked with plenty of these clients that are like, we've been fine to just feed off the land, and that's all the nutrients we need. And while in some cases true, certainly for the people that are saying I can just fix it with a supplement, we can probably veer somewhere towards the middle. We've
Mm.
got the other extreme saying, well, it's just expensive pee, our body doesn't even absorb it.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that's also completely unfounded. The thing that I don't think people realize either is that if you pee it out, it's been in your body. And if it's been in your body, then your body's had access to it. So if you take, for example, a B vitamin, which is water soluble, and yes, if you take supplementally excess of it, you will just pee it out. While it's been in your bloodstream, your body has had access to what it's needed and will have used some of it. So it's ridiculous. Like the whole expensive pee thing is so ridiculously silly. But the point of it is that some of that comes from the fact that all the supplements are not created equal, and B vitamins are a really good example of that. Where there's like one B vitamin on that you can buy over the counter, that is something that I recommend at the moment, because
Yeah.
so many of them are in a form that our body can't utilize straight away, or it needs to be converted, and there's genetic reasons why maybe someone can't do that. So a lot of them are just in a form we just don't absorb that efficiently anyway. So maybe we poop it out. Or they're in really, really micro doses, which are not actually going to make that much of a difference anyway. Like you might get more from eating a carrot, for example. So it is just a kind of it's almost placebo effect. You take the thing, you feel good about it, and so you carry on your merry way and don't even think about it. So there's always, whenever there's a rumor, there's always some seed of truth buried in there. And with the not taking supplement piece, I think it is that there are a lot of just not so good ones out there. And so I said this in a post to our group the other day. I am pro supplements, but there's very few that I recommend, because I'm pro supplements in a targeted sense where it makes you actually taking what you need in order to improve your health. And that's just not scattershot, throw everything at it at the supermarket.
Mm.
It's, the right form, the right dose, the right frequency, all of those sorts of things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the propriety blend type stuff
Mm.
is in a concept a good one, yet has been taken to the extremes where it's like I don't even know what's in here anymore, and even if I do, the doses are completely wrong, right? So, example that comes up a ton is we're seeing a lot of clients being like, oh yeah, I take a magnesium, even though it's blatantly super low nutrient wise in their bloodstream. And we find out what they're taking, and they say, "Oh no, I'm taking 500 milligrams of this, but it's this proprietary blend of crap." And 90% of it's oxide that our body's not utilizing, to what you were talking about before, right? So being able to look at the quality type of supplements is where we're obviously pro the clinical grade stuff, or at least just very much third party tested, and really it's what they said was in it is actually in it, because a lot of this stuff is and again, it's just a very unregulated market, and again, we can understand where that stuff comes from. But being able to, in a lot of cases, we've seen this where we've drastically reduced the amount of supplements people were taking, but focus on one or two that really made the difference, right? And I think looking at a zinc or a magnesium that could be a, you know, $60 supplement, you could say, well, that's expensive. But if you're taking five supplements and they're all $30 each, you're spending more money and getting less of a result, and just kind of, as you said, scattershotting a whole lot of nutrients your body doesn't need at the wrong amounts anyway, rather than finding a one or two that you really need. So I think, as you said, there's a strand of truth in there in regards to if you're taking the wrong stuff, you are just peeing away money, but you're in a place where it's not because your body didn't absorb it, it's because you're not taking high quality stuff.
Yeah. And I think to the argument that do we need them, we should just be able to get it all from food. It would be nice, right, if that's all we needed to do, but it just isn't backed up like that. The way we live now, the even genetic tendencies, things that you do or don't absorb so well based on certain enzyme processes that you may or may not have that are so efficient, and even our planting and our food storage and all of those sorts of things. How long does it take for something to grow, be transported to the supermarket, you to finally buy it, then you eat it? Back in the day, we would have had a much shorter loop there. And a lot of the vitamins and stuff are very sensitive, like they do break down over time. So what grows in a vegetable may not be what is in the vegetable still when you eat it. So that time gap is huge. And then also soil depletion. And like in Australia and New Zealand, we know our soils are depleted of zinc and selenium rather. And so we just don't really get that from our food. So there is a whole lot of argument there as well that there is a need for some intentional bringing in of certain things for some people beyond what they might be able to get even from a really well-structured nutrition plan.
Yeah, and in the same way that as you increase your weight training, your demands for protein requirements go up to recover. In the same way, living in the busy modern world that we do, requirements of certain nutrients also go up, right? If you've got higher stress, you burn through certain nutrients more than you otherwise would. So unless you are quite literally completely self-sufficient, you go down and grab your own eggs from your chickens, and you have your whole garden set up, and you are fully relaxed in your day, you might get closer to not needing as many of those nutrients, right? Because as you said, you're shortening the production path of a lot of things. But even then, there'd probably still be nutrients that just by how much that soil has been worked or whatever else that's come through, it can start to get in the way. It's just the ability to fuel the performance that you're after on a day-to-day basis and what our body is demanded of. So yeah, it's kind of both ways. If you're taking 10, 15 supplements, there's probably either one, you're in a very short season of trying to fix something, but long-term, that's probably a bit more than you need. Yet when you are looking at the potency of supplements, find the ones that are really targeted to what your body needs, and they will be more expensive, but they're because they actually work.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so we've gone the eggs, which is more nutritional. We've gone the supplements. I'm excited to dive into training, but before we do, you're itching to go past this all about balance one that triggers Mandy. Why does it trigger you?
This idea that it's all about balance. I've talked to a few people recently, and they're not getting the results that they're after for various reasons. And then when you question them on it, they're like, well, I've been doing this and I've been doing this, but it's just about balance. And I had some of this. And I'm like, is it really about balance? Or is that just an excuse that we use to make ourselves feel slightly more comfortable that we haven't actually done what we said we're going to do? And I think, balance.
Did I poke the bear here?
yeah. Wait till this one gets riled up.
Yeah.
Balance is a nice word. It's thrown around. It feels good because it feels in balance. But ultimately, if you want something, if you're chasing something, if you're trying to work on something or fix something, you don't need balance. You need to take action on something. And it's going to feel out of balance, probably, for a lot of people. If you spent the last 10 or 20 years doing stuff that's got you quite unwell and quite sick, changing directions and going the other way isn't going to feel very balanced for a while. So there has to be a point of time where we talk about this, right, of getting uncomfortable. And it's okay if it doesn't feel balanced for a little while.
Yeah. So my word of balance to help me feel more comfortable with the word is visualizing someone on a tightrope or a balance rope, whatever you call it, right? And if you think about balance in that space, you're jiggling all over the show trying to find your middle ground, right? So macro, you may have balance in regards to I'm wanting to perform at my work as well as my health as well as my relationships. But if I look micro, short term, there's a lot of zigging and zagging there in seasons of certain focus points to allow me to be truly balanced macro. So I
Mhm.
don't know if that's in line with yours, but that's my vision of it to
Yeah.
not have me riled up.
Yeah.
um, and what that means, and I guess what you're alluding to, is this concept that we talk about a ton with our clients, which is like seasons of focus. And if you are trying to be sustainable with something, that still means that you need to get uncomfortable because otherwise you're just sustaining what you currently do. So if you're trying to drop body fat and you've sustained a particular diet right now, which is, bread for breakfast and your sandwich at lunch and your whatever at dinner, let's go lasagna for now, just to be extra. Um, if you sustain that, you're going to continue to sustain your current path or trajectory, both weight loss, energy, or weight gain in this instance, and so much more. So there's a rebalance required on that tightrope of probably cutting out some pasta and some bread, right? To get yourself back onto quote unquote balance. In the short term, micro, does that feel balanced? Not at all, because you're disrupting your entire way of how you shop at the supermarket, how often that meal you cook, etc., for it to be uncomfortable in the short term. But the word, or as you said, the what riles Mandy up and me just as much is it's all about balance is used as a blanket statement to say, well, I actually want to stay comfortable and I'm expecting the results without making the changes, right? Would that be
Mm.
fair?
Yeah, it is actually. You made me think of something I think we talked about this on a podcast earlier about the ripple effect out, the first, second, third order consequence of decision
Mm.
making.
Yep.
And most of our decisions are made on first order consequence. So, how does it make me feel right now? And so, if we use balance for a first order consequence, we won't do anything that feels uncomfortable right now because that's going to feel unbalanced. But that might keep us in a state of health that ultimately is unbalanced if you extrapolate it out over a lifetime, exactly like you said with the tightrope. So I think this is the issue, right? Is that balance in itself is not wrong. It's how we use the word to justify our immediate actions for something we just don't want to
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So to debunk that myth, it's not about balance. It's about aggressive action taken in the
do.
short term, or no, just a slightly more mindful awareness of you are choosing challenge or discomfort or whatever word feels better for you for a long-term outcome, right? It's the classic choose easy now, have a hard time later, or choose the hard now to have an easy time later. And I think being able to get that idea of, in your words, first order consequence versus second and third allows you to look at balance in a different light of the more we can delay gratification in a lot of ways that way does allow us to be like, no, no, I am balanced in the short term, in the long term, but in the short term, I need to spend a lot more time in this space because I need to recenter because I've been off track for a really long time. And I see this just as much in the workspace environment, right, as well, where you're for a lot of us, we're in a spot where we're trying to provide for a family or partner or whatever, and we find ourselves veering off to doing slightly longer days, slightly bigger hours, getting a little bit more stressed. So, what balance looks like in that space to recenter might be a case of claiming some of that time back, being more clear on some of those meals, etc. But there might be a project or something that's coming up in the short term that takes 3, 4 or so months. Being clear on that season where you're like, and you communicate that with your partner or your family or what, otherwise to say like, hey, I'm going to be a little bit off balance here for 2 or 3 months. And then we can look at recentering a bit with creating this routine again, going on a trip or whatever it might be to find and align that balance again, right? So again, the season, you can choose how long that's looked at. And I quite like that sort of either quarterly or yearly balance continuum to get an awareness of, okay, well, where's the recalibration of this? Because I've seen too many people and where they go wrong is either one, they say, I need to stay balanced, so they never actually change anything and they just stay on their current trajectory. Or two, they say, I'll get healthy when, right? Which is after next project, which turns into a bigger project, which turns into X, Y, and Z and continues going. So again, it's veering off on that trajectory. So being aware of seasons and aware of balance as a continual readjustment of all the stuff that pulls you away from your true north is probably a better way of looking at that one.
Yeah, I like that, taking it out over a longer timeline. And I was thinking while you were just saying there is, I think the other issue with the word balance is we look at what other people are doing to try and determine what is balance for us.
Yeah.
So Someone else works 9 to 5 and you work, maybe different hours, you have some work in the evening or whatever. Someone looking from the outside could look and say, well, that's not balanced because you're working in the evening or you're working on your weekends or whatever. For you, it might be perfectly balanced because you've got different goals, you've got different things going on, you've got different scenarios. So not letting other people's version of balance. And I think the same happens with food, where you bring a salad or a healthy lunch in and someone's like, oh, you've got, you're so strict or whatever, you've got no balance. But actually your goals might be different to the person who's talking to you. So just not allowing other people's version of balance, when they might not even be balanced at all, and determining what is balance for us.
Yeah, and I've seen a workspace environment. This is kind of weird. This is where you start to get a little bit more foggy with your actions because of other people's words and associations with what healthy looks like. So you come in with a salad and they're like, "Oh, you're on another diet." I'm like, "No, I just feel good on this." Is your
Yeah.
pizza feeling making you feel good? No. Well, you could have a salad too. And I think sometimes we've certainly seen this with plenty of clients where they come in with a salad and they're like, "Oh, you must be on a health kick." I'm like, "No, I just feel great on this. I've got this extra crunch in here and I've got the olive oil and balsamic. And I'm like, this is just my ideal lunch and I feel good all afternoon." Yet if you come in with your McDonald's thing, nobody bats an eyelid. So that's just kind of bizarre. That's societal pressures that obviously we are always fighting against. But being able to be mindful of, like, again, your true north and how you're rebalancing there. Yeah, that's a sticky one. That's kind of less so. It fits into the myth category simply because all about balance is not the way to get healthy. But a recentering of it, or just getting aware of the time frame to which that balance is kind of looked at over, I think is a really nice way to address that.
Yeah, I think it's similar to the supplements in a way that there's both ends of the spectrum, right? There's people that use balance as a reason not to do the thing, and then there's people that maybe justify unhealthy obsession with certain behaviors as balance as well. So there's kind of like a what's it for you?
Totally.
Balance in itself is not the wrong word, but using it in the short term, not necessarily helpful. So yeah, that's context. That's what this podcast is all about, right?
Yeah. If you're using balance to not move forward, then you're using it in the wrong context. If you are someone who tends to veer to the extremes, then maybe it's a helpful phrase to keep in your repertoire.
Yes.
Right. Let's tackle some exercise ones, and then we'll wrap up. The last two I want to use. As I said before, I want to keep these more of what we hear quite regularly. Things like, I don't want to weight train because I will get bulky. We've debunked before, and I'm noticing I'm not hearing that nearly as much. So it's really, really cool to hear is like, you're not going to put on a lot of muscle very quickly unless you've previously had a ton of muscle, or you're taking extra hormones, or you're eating like an absolute horse. Like, there's going to be so much more required for you to put on that amount of muscle, and it will still take you 10 years even if you wanted to. So I've kind of said that one anyway, but we'll move on. The two that I hear coming up quite a bit is I don't need to train my legs because I already run, cycle, whatever, or I don't need to weight train because I'm already active, right? I'm already a builder or a farmer or something along those lines. So they kind of fit into the same category as this idea of like, I'm already exercising, so I don't need to do weight training, as if treating them as all equal is the same thing. So there's a lot of different ways we can take this, but I want to debunk this one because I think it's really unhelpful to both the short-term outcome in regards to you feeling energetic, strong, lean, etc. in the short term, but it's also really unhelpful to you in the long term in regards to the longevity of your joints as well. Because if there's so I'm going to start with the second one, which is if you have a repeated pattern of behavior in regards to you're a fencer or a builder or whatever, there's going to be muscles that you use on a really, really good basis, like your shoulders or your forearms or whatever. But for a lot of these, it's the lats or these muscles in our back or our glutes or our hamstrings, etc., that tend to be underworked in comparison. And if that's continued to be exacerbated over a long period of time, or continued to be used in that way, these movement patterns and imbalances simply get worse, right? So where weight training can be very helpful, and I think sometimes where that frame comes through is like, it tells me that people are just looking at exercises. Okay, well, exercise burns calories, and that's why I do exercise, right? But when we start to explore how many other reasons we could do exercise for, I feel stronger, I feel more energetic, I'm balancing out muscle groups, I'm not as clicky and achy of joints, there's a general improvement of all of these things. We start to appreciate exercise more than just burning fat in the short term. Before I tackle that a little bit more, Mandy, what are you picking up and putting down there?
Yeah, no, I see this a lot, right? There's idea that if you move, or I think it is if you do something that makes your body feel tired, you have therefore exercised.
Yeah,
So if you've dug trenches, I'm going to use this example because my husband's a plumber. If you've dug trenches for a day, yes, you have expended a lot of energy, and there's probably certain muscles that are tired, but your full body did not necessarily get a workout in the same way that you would if you did a intentional strength training session. So I think it's just this idea that just because you feel tired doesn't mean you've necessarily worked out in a way that is promoting muscle balance and all of that sort of stuff.
totally. And I was talking to a bloke just on Friday about this who's in a very active contracted job, lopping trees, helping out with certain construction and civil work, and he's pretty busy at the moment. So what we've done is manage his total load of exercise by making sure that recovery is still looked at, because if you're usually in the office and then you do one day of like just all out fencing for the day, your body's going to be pretty well tired. But if it's an everyday task that your body is very used to, then exercise doesn't serve the purpose of exerting more energy. It's of balancing out the muscles that you continue to use, right? So I think it's kind of a nice way to look at it. Like, okay, if today was just way bigger than usual, then maybe do the exercise tomorrow, or do a much more light version of the workout that you had planned, because there is a total amount of energy that you can access in one day, right? For example, we talk a lot around how training different energy systems, right? Like one metabolic system is taxed more when going for a run, and then one central nervous system is taxed a little bit more when weight training. They are technically separate systems, but if you run a marathon in a day, you still don't have a lot of energy left over to do the weight training as well, right? So keeping them on separate days is probably a good idea. But looking at it through that same space of with this guy, he was doing that every day, right? So his day was active. That was a very normal part of his day. Looking at the weight training, and he was literally coming to me with these problems saying, my joints are sore and this, that, and the other is sort of aching. I'm like, great. That's a whole reason that we need to add in weight training, because you've absolutely expended the energy and worked these muscle groups, but these other ones are crying for attention and strengthening. And he texted me the following day saying, "Hey, I actually already feel better. My elbow's not as creaky or painful." And I think that shows that sometimes it doesn't even have to be the long-term reminder of longevity. In the short term, you'll also see that benefit of like, "Hey, my back's not as sore because I'm actually intentionally moving." Now, we could go much deeper into in the same way we can nutrition. Again, that's not just about lifting a dumbbell up and down. That is now a case of how mindful you are towards exercise and what is contracting and moving, rather than just counting to 10. But yeah, as a myth, that's certainly one that we see. Exercise is not all equal, and there's a level of strengthening still required if you have an active job or you run or whatever. Being able to strengthen those muscles through the full range, even though they're being exercised, is going to have a considerably better or more of an impact than just calories burnt.
Yeah, and I think just balancing out the ones that you don't use all the time. And again, like for active people like builders or tradies and whatnot who have, potentially quite strong shoulders and arms, but there's a whole lack of like glute engagement and all that sort of stuff. It's like, let's work on the areas that don't always get used so that you can be balanced and not have those issues or tendencies towards, because our body's pretty good at getting efficient and then spreading the load and tweaking something, right? So actually optimizing to this word balance keeps coming up, it's niggling me now, but to balance out your actual strength across your whole body and not just get stronger in one area is really important.
Yeah. We've found Mandy's trigger word. Cool. I'm going to leave that one there. I think the nutritional one's super interesting, but I think that I keep coming back to that whole like link to cholesterol slash like other blood work markers that we keep seeing, and I guess my concern overall is that when nutrition is only ever looked at as calories, there's so much to be missed. In the same way that we're talking about training, where it's not just counting to 10 and doing your reps, there's this whole nutrient and fueling and nourishing effect that nutrition can have, yet we only look at the negative. And then the same with the weight training, right? We can think about, okay, we just need to burn calories, but if we're not strengthening the body and looking at these other aspects of how mindful we are to exercise and the benefits of exercise, again, it really comes back down to this main concept that we've really hammered home, which is focus on what you can gain rather than what you can lose. And I think it just really highlights how much of the relationship with the activities you do on a day-to-day basis is ultimately reinforcing if you continue to do it long term, or if it feels like this negative thing you have to do.
Can I just share a little quick story there?
I can
Just
hear the cog going, so absolutely.
I'm thinking of two people in Body Reset. One in particular, though, who we've shared her story before, but she was told that she had like degenerative osteoarthritis in her knees, and that she just needed to sort of stay moving so that the pain was manageable, and then take painkillers and whatnot. She wasn't very old. I can't remember exactly how old she was, maybe just 40. Um, and she started doing the strength training, and all of her pain has gone. And she dropped a heap of weight. She was able to do like pull-ups and all of these cool things. And she's just like, if I had believed that first thing that I heard, which was that I would just only get sorer and degenerate further over time, I would still be living that now. And I think the reason I want to share that story is that we have all these ideas and beliefs and things that we're told that percolate through the back of our mind, like eggs are bad or all movements the same, or these sorts of things. If it's not working for you, question it. Like, that's what I want people to be able to take away, is question it, because there's probably a different answer and you might be able to get a different result if you look down a different pathway.
Yeah, cool. I like to finish on that. And again, that's kind of, you've looped it around really nicely, because the whole point we bring up these myths is question all the crap that keeps people stuck.
Yeah.
And these are some pretty common ones that are like not drastically going to inhibit your entire ability to lean into nutrition or weight training, but at the same time, they become one of those hindrances that if you don't question them, they can really block this whole nother level of performance or outcome that you're really after. So we're gonna leave that one there. There's what was it? One, two, three, five, I think total, or six myths to be debunked. If you want us to do another episode like this, shoot me a message of your top most hated myths that continue to come up for you, and by all means, we'll do another one in this space. Otherwise, until next time, have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you next week.